So happy you could join us once again. We are joined, as always, by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a food and wine sommelier of the year. The group includes Columbia Firehouse in Old Town, Vermilion in Old Town. Greg, good to see you.
You too.
What do we have on tap this week?
So this week we have one of the rare beers we've ever had on the show. It's called Odio Equum, and it's from Avery Brewing Company in Boulder, Colorado. Avery has been, really, they've been ahead of the curve when it comes to most things. Obviously, Avery IPA is one of the best IPAs you can find around. We love it. We serve it all the time. They make fantastic, super strong beers. I'm thinking about like Mephistopheles Imperial Stout, up to 15+% alcohol. But then they've also been making superb barrel-aged sour beers for a very long time. And I say that because nowadays it seems that, every brewery is kind of experimenting with sours, and some are definitely more complex and better than others. Avery's are knockouts every single time, and this one is, of course, the same. And what makes them even, I guess, more special is that they are so rare. This particular batch, this is the 13th in the series of sour barrel-aged beers they've done, and this one's only 443 cases of 12-ounce bottles, 24 12-ounce bottles, 443. That is minuscule and quite hard to find. And I've had a great friendship with Adam Avery and his crew out at the brewery for a long time, so they're kind. They always make sure to send some out. I'm not sure if we're going to see this too much in retail, but you will see it at our restaurants. We're lucky to have some at Church Key and Birch Marley, but also at both of our Roosticos out in Virginia. So let's taste this first, because it's stunning.
It's inviting color, it's...
Yeah, that's great.
It looks red in some light and then different in other light. Oh, that is good.
Amazing. So this is phenomenal. It is a 7.1% sour ale brewed with red raspberries, and then post-fermentation it's aged in oak barrels that have previously held Cabernet Sauvignon, and it layers in all those flavors. In the nose you get that raspberry quality, but what's cool is that the raspberry flows in with the big, bold, like kind of big cherry and fruit notes we'd expect from Cabernet Sauvignon anyways. And then you even get little dustings of vanilla, coconut, oak, and toast from the wood itself. And on the palate, so it's almost wine-like in the nose, but then on the palate it's not. It's got much more kind of an intense tartness to it. But it's not acetic at all. It's not vinegary at all. It's got a clean, refreshing, driving tartness to it that's just really refreshing.
It goes right up to the crossing the line of too tart and stops just at the right spot.
It's great. Yeah, absolutely. And the name's cool too. So Odio Equum in Latin is kind of the fear or hatred of the horse, which seems kind of strange. But this beer does utilize Brettanomyces, a semi-wild yeast strain. That gives you, not so much the acidity doesn't come from bread at all, actually. It's more of the kind of funky, earthy, rustic qualities come through from that yeast fermentation. And the Odio Equum is a reference to the fact that winemakers fear and despise almost universally Brettanomyces, because Brettanomyces is a pervasive and diligent wild yeast that once it kind of gets into your winery or oftentimes your brewery, it's everywhere and it's hard to get rid of. So winemakers really try to keep it out. Now, what I found is that Brettanomyces, when it ferments sugars into alcohol, it creates lots of other flavors. And in beer, these flavors are a lot more inviting. They're flavors of earth and kind of farmy, rustic qualities, leather and horse and things like that. But and that's where the idea of the horse qualities of Brett comes from. In wine, it comes through in a different way. It tends to be more kind of band-aidy and clovey and medicinal, and it really does ruin a lot of wines. Although, that said, Châteauneuf du Pape, the famous French wine, definitely tends to, more than not, showcase a touch of Brett character. That's almost one of its calling cards, so you'll see that.
I've had, I thought, very good red wine that had a band-aidy.
Oh, yeah, like rustic quality. It's kind of country
it's sort of
wine.
Yeah, it's not... You don't get that when you're a young wine drinker, I don't think.
No,
when you're drinking maybe the slightly less expensive
So
wine.
typically, vintners and winemakers are very careful to keep bread away. They have the Odio Equum, but us craft beer guys love Brett and tend to include it in a lot of different beers.
Now, you and I met for the first time at Rustico in Alexandria. I'm pretty sure that Rustico in Alexandria was the first time I ever had Avery beer. Loved it. Got it again. I think you had, and maybe you still do, it was a 4-beer sampler called Bitter Beer Face.
Yeah, we did.
Which originally a Bitter Beer Face commercial years ago was a negative thing.
Keystone did it.
Yes, Keystone did it. But now, for hopheads, if I see something called Bitter Beer Face, I'm intrigued and looking to maybe try it for sure.
That's right. Yeah, it was one of our flights of 4. It was always 4 of the hoppiest beers we had, which would have been like Avery IPA, Bell's Two Hearted Ale, and things like that. Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that.
What would you pair this with? I know we've had these sorts of beers before, but
it's pretty sour. I mean, it's definitely an intense acidity here. So I'm thinking, Rack of Lamb. That would just be
which people
phenomenal.
like with mint jelly. So those
yeah, exactly. And also, I'm just thinking like driving sour. I'm thinking, what would I do? Maybe a bold red wine with, but make sure we have richness to handle the pretty intense acidity. So yeah, I mean either. I'm thinking lamb chops across the board, but then also like really, really fatty steak, ribeye, rib cap, things like that would be awesome. This keeping it simple. I mean, I'm thinking like very rustic, like the steak and the drink, and that's it.
Or even more simple, I think I might just hole away down in the basement with a bottle by myself.
Yeah, you could just
forego the food.
Totally.
So as you can tell, we are drinking this out of a type of beer glass that maybe not everyone has in their home, and we have a Beer of the Week question from one of our loyal Beer of the Week viewers, and surprise, surprise, I forgot the email back at the radio station again, so I'll have to put his name on the screen down below here. But his basic question was, and we've talked about it a bit before, you hear a lot of people talk about glassware and beer. How much does it really matter? Can I drink a lager out of this or an IPA out of this? Or
yeah, I mean, this might sound like anathema, but it's something that I know Garrett Oliver, my good friend, who's a prodigious writer as well as the brewmaster for Brooklyn Brewery, has said a lot for many years. If you don't want to bother with trying to get all different kinds of shapes of glasses, the best glass that's going to work for all beers are wine glasses. And we love to serve beers in all the different shapes and sizes because it's beautiful. It's a cool talking point, and it definitely relates to tradition. But now that we have beers that are imbued with amazing flavors, complexity, it's not responsible really to serve them all in just a regular old shaker pint glass and fill it to the brim. I will say that when you can, always pour your beer under the rim. You don't really want to fill it up. When you're pouring, foam is your friend. Because CO2 bubbles, as they break out of solution, they're dragging with them volatile aromatic compounds. And beer, unlike cider or wine, has lots of proteins and starchy sugars that create a kind of scaffolding that holds the foam. That's why beer maintains its head. So all those aromas are coming up and getting trapped. And then as the foam subsides, you get this beautiful pop of aroma. So you always want to make sure you have a nice head on your glass and that you have some ullage, some head space here as well, so that you can actually smell that beer. Because remember, flavor is 99.9% aroma, and this much taste itself. Taste is simple: bitter, sour, salty, sweet. The different nuances are what you get from the aroma. So you want to not pour it all the way. Foam is your friend, and that's where the curvature comes in. So this is a tulip glass. It works for everything because it has a stem, just like a wine glass would, so you can swirl. Swirling revs up those aromatic compounds, creates a little heat so they can evaporate out, and that's where you get even more intensity of aroma, just like you would with wine. So swirling's great. And then having this curvature is awesome too because it focuses the aromas, and then the little bit of a lip curve at the end allows you to drink it in and let the flavors kind of flow over your palate as well. Now that said, a pint glass can work as well. What I tend to think of though is, you start with a simpler pint glass or like a very narrow Pilsner glass for things that are less aromatically expressive. But as you get more intense and richer and more aromatically expressive, you're going to want something that's smaller, curved, and stemmed. So, when you're thinking getting to Belgian beers and then imperial stouts and things like that, you're going to want small snifters that are curved with little tiny base stems, and you're going to want tulips and things like that.
One other quickie. Would this be a good one to lay down?
Absolutely.
Because, I can see getting a six-pack and really not powering through it like I would.
Right, it's a sipper to begin with because of its intensity of flavor. But yeah, laying this down would be wonderful. We have a huge vintage beer program here at Church Key and Birch and Barley where I'll get a case of this in, we'll sell half and save half. And I've been doing this for over 3 years now since we opened. So actually, keep your eyes out. We're going to start releasing some of the vintages of old things that we have. KBS going back to 2009 and 10 and things like that. So lots of cool stuff in that realm. So we know that darker, stronger beers, imperial porters and stouts and Belgian strong dark ales age really well. But sour beers age phenomenally as well. And in fact, what you'll find is as sour beers age, the acidity mellows and other flavors come out. So the funk will increase in the nose, but the tartness will actually mollify a bit. So it's really great to see the way that sour beers change over time. In the same way as really dry Rieslings can age for very long periods as well.
I've started my own program at home with a 4-pack of Bourbon County at your suggestion.
Boom.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
see if
one
I
of the best.
can keep my hands off of it. If you've got a question for Greg, please send us an email. It is beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Greg, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Everyone, please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.